Hello, welcome to 10 at 10. My name is Michael Ramage. I'm the director of the Cyber Education Research Center here at Murray State University, and welcome back to 10 at 10. I believe we are on episode 84. 10 at 10 is brought to you through a partnership between Murray State University, Grow West, the Technology Council of West Kentucky, KY Innovation, and local partner Sprocket Innovation in Paducah and the Kentucky Innovation Station in Madisonville. A few weeks ago, we started a multi-part series looking at the top 10 cybersecurity mistakes that small businesses make. And honestly, these are mistakes that both small businesses, medium businesses, individuals, and sometimes even large businesses make. And we thought it was important enough that we wanted to walk through these mistakes and talk about them, and then even help you think through ways that maybe you can avoid making these mistakes. So we've been walking through this journey, and I want to think about number 3 today. Number 3 is having a limited understanding of how to mitigate cyber risk. We talk a lot in cybersecurity about risk, and really the whole cybersecurity world is about risk management. It's about managing risk. Ultimately, it's about managing financial risk to your organization, but we're looking at technology in ways strategies that we can take to limit either inadvertent damage or malicious intent, those threat actors with malicious intent from hurting or harming your business, your organization, your family, even. So, a lot of individuals will understand enough that they need to do something, but maybe not necessarily how to go about doing that something. For example, perhaps somebody will understand that there's a threat of an insider attack, so they buy a firewall. Well, by definition of an insider, that insider is inside a perimeter firewall. So if you are trusting everybody on the inside, then if you purchase a firewall, it's really not going to do anything to help. So what we mean by limited understanding of how to address these issues, it really does start with making sure that we understand some very fundamental pieces. So, for example, let's go back. Mitigation. What does mitigation mean? We just said that it's a lack of understanding about dealing with mitigation, but what does mitigation actually mean? Mitigation is reducing the risk or effect of a cyber attack. So let me go back to my example. If you implement a firewall, a perimeter firewall around your organization, does that help reduce the risk or the effect of a cyber attack from an insider, from that insider threat? An insider being perhaps an employee or somebody that already has permission to utilize your network. No, it does not. It does not. Now, perhaps it reduces the risk of them sending information externally if you have your firewall configured properly to prevent that, but it doesn't really reduce the risk to your organization. So how do you make sure that your mitigation strategies, as this mistake makes a limited understanding of how to mitigate cyber risk, how do we add that understanding? How do we make sure that we're mitigating cyber risk correctly? Well, if you Google it, if you look online, you're going to find a ton of different recommendations. I found this one: 6 strategies for cybersecurity risk mitigation. Conduct a risk assessment, establish network access controls, implement firewalls and antivirus software, create patch management schedule, continuously monitor network traffic, and build an incident response plan. All great things. And actually, I would argue all things that you should do. Most of those, maybe all of those, are things that we've talked about on 10 at 10 about you doing. But I go back to that insider threat. If the insider threat was malicious, then okay, some of these things would help. But what if your employees got phished? They clicked on a link in an email. Where does supporting and helping and training and informing of the threats to your employees, to your people? We've talked about the human factor. Where does that fit into this 6 strategies? So it's not perfect. So here's another one: top 7 cybersecurity risk mitigation strategies. Keep your software updated. Restricted access, disaster recovery plan, get rid of unwanted hardware. Ensure signed software policies, hunt for intrusions, stay away from single factor authentication. Again, all things that we've talked about, but that's not the whole picture. That's not the whole picture either. So even if you do have a limited understanding of these risk mitigation strategies and you go try to find help's hard to find. A complete picture is hard to find in a list of 6 or 7 things. So here's a couple of frameworks: 5 steps to creating a risk management strategy. There's flow charts. Everybody's got to have a flow chart. There's a lot of ways that we can, frameworks that we should go through to think about risk mitigation. And I actually do think that some of these are really good and important for you to consider. Yes, you need to understand the risk. Yes, you need to perform a risk assessment. You need to prioritize those risks. You need to track those risks. You need to implement and monitor progress. You need to implement strategies, which is what we're talking about, that mitigation strategy, and then monitor progress. Does the strategy that you implemented impact anything? Are we actually making a difference? If we're not making a difference, then maybe we need to do something different. Those are things that are fundamental, but we take it for granted so often that sometimes we just need to come back and really think about, here's the things that we need to do to make a difference in our organization. And measuring, if we don't have something that's measurable, then we're not sure if we're making a difference or not. Now, I will also say, let me share one more thing before I do that. If you're thinking about risk mitigation, it comes down to really 4 different strategies. Now, you may read about other strategies. For example, hedging your bet is a strategy that some will talk about. Monitoring is another strategy that people will talk about. But there's really 4 types of risk mitigation. You can accept the risk, which means you do nothing. You can, we have a risk of an earthquake in this area of the country. Some organizations will have a backup site that is outside of this area, but there's a risk. A lot of organizations just accept that risk. There is the option that you can avoid the risk. Some large data centers don't want to locate in this area because of that earthquake risk. So they just avoid the region altogether. If your organization can be really harmed by a hurricane, then maybe don't locate in Florida. Just avoid it. So there's a lot of there's those 2 strategies. You can either just accept it or avoid it altogether, or you can transfer the risk. And the best example of transferring the risk is insurance. That means if you get hit by some sort of incident, then insurance would cover it for you. For example, if your house gets hit by a tornado and you have to rebuild it, then you're probably your homeowner's insurance will probably help cover that cost. That's just transferring the risk so that you're not holding on to the entire risk. And then the last strategy is to reduce the risk. And that's really what all of these other strategies look at, is how do we reduce that risk? If we have a risk of somebody hacking into our system, then from the outside, then maybe we add a firewall. If we have the risk of our employees inadvertently doing something harmful to our network, then maybe we implement employee training. There's a lot of different pieces that we can do to avoid the risk. If somebody happened to steal a password, that username and password for an employee, yet you have two-factor authentication implemented, then you're reducing the risk of harm from those lost credentials. There's a lot of those pieces that we can do, but at the end of the day, we need to understand risk mitigation and how that works. And that helps our network safer. Is it complicated? Absolutely, it's complicated. I work in a program where we spend 4 years teaching students how to do this. It's not something that you can just snap your fingers and be an expert at risk mitigation strategies, but you can understand that you're not an expert and you can find those strategies to make it better, and including hiring those cybersecurity experts. I appreciate you joining today. I went a little long. I apologize for that, but I think this is really good stuff. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I appreciate your joining us today, and I'll see you next week right back here on 10 at 10. Thank you. Bye.